There you go. Cool. So, hello everybody and welcome to this is my second masterclass. And today I want to talk to you about building the community and being an active part of the community, a burlesque community, of course, to make it better every time. And I'm gonna give you a few pointers from my own perspective and my own experience through these years. Now I've been in burlesque for professionally about 5 years. But as a student, so I've been through all of these roles myself for around almost 10 years now. I'm closing to 10 years. And as you know, and I just shared, I started as a student. I came from pole dance, and then my pole dance teacher was also a burlesque teacher. And that's how I got into burlesque for the first time. So I was a student, and then I started really loving it and wanting to perform myself. And then I looked for some coaches and mentors that I still have to this day and some new ones, and I keep always looking. I'm always in contact with different people in the community to help with my own growth. And then from that I got the studio that I have today, which is a studio that was already, I think, 12, I want to say, but somewhere between 12 and 14 years old when I bought the studio. And I can't even tell you how much I have learned and grown from becoming a studio owner, learning to own my studio, and then teaching. So right now I teach around 10 hours a week, and I used to teach even more before. And then becoming a mentor and coaching my own students into their own performing careers, plus having my own performing career, traveling through Europe and even performed in Japan. So I still wear all of the shoes that I'm about to share with you, my insight on how to be the best person for yourself and for the burlesque communities as a whole into each one of those roles. So I'm going to start with student, of course. So first thing, and I'm looking here into my notes. I don't think I'll share the notes right now. I will probably share in my post. So it will be on the description box for the YouTube video. And it will also be, let me just pin myself. Maybe I can pin for everybody. Wait. Um, Pin for everyone. Yes. I will definitely copy and paste my notes into my YouTube description and the Patreon and the school posts if you want to see what I'm referring to. But it's pretty much just bullet points so that I don't forget to say anything that I wanted to say today. So, first thing is, what makes a good burlesque student? So, what I divided this into is towards different parts of the community. So, as a burlesque student, for example, how can you be really good towards your peers, other burlesque students? So, the first thing, and that's very important in my studio, and I share that with my students all the time, is focus on yourself. And I don't hear that a lot, in fact. We hear a lot about giving and supporting others and sharing and making space for others, which is beautiful. And I hope everybody does. But a big part of the burlesque community is female. And one thing that a lot of women do is to actually always think of others before themselves. So, the one thing I would like to share here for sure is Of course, whatever is already a given, I will not be repeating in this video. So you know how to be a good student, in class. You know you should make space for people to also see themselves in the mirror. You should not be mean to other students or whatever. But I would like you to remember that burlesque is something we teach to adults. And when a teacher comes and when I prepare my classes, I'm thinking about my audience, which is an adult person. Uh, and having said that, one thing I wish they all did was taking better care of themselves first. Because once you also take better care of yourself, it's easier to give to others. It's just like that mask thing, on airplanes. So you put your mask first and then you help other people. And also, when you have the moments that you have to take, go to class, stay in your little bubble. And if you're having a bad day, you still make it to class, which makes a great student, by the way. But you are there and you are taking what you need. And when you're having a great day, a great time, and you feel like sharing more of your energy, do that. I will come to studios and teachers later. So, of course, it's the studios and the teachers' role to make sure there is a space for everything. But for the student, definitely, point number one, focus on yourself. What do you need to learn? What are your questions? What do you want to share or what you don't want to share today? What are the things you want to work on, regardless of what everybody else is doing? Just focusing on yourself. Very important point. And it makes a very good student. I also heard someone say before, and at this point, I don't even know who came up with that first because I heard that in so many different things. The only moment you're looking into someone else's plate is to make sure they have enough, never to compare your plate to other people's plates. And especially in burlesque, this is very important because one of the things I love most about burlesque is the diversity, meaning there will be a lot of different people in class, hopefully. And they will all be different. So I hear this question a lot in class. Oh, but when we are doing this move or when we are dancing like this, we don't look the same. And I'm very happy to hear that. I was like, well, yeah, you're not supposed to look the same. You have different heights, you have different sizes, you have different ages, you have different body shapes, you're all different. Unless I wanted to do copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, which is something that it's not part of my vision. And again, when I come to studios, I'm going to talk about vision. Then you're not supposed to look the same. The one thing to focus on, I tell my students in groups, sync, be in sync. That's the best you can do. But don't worry too much about the way things look. That's the teacher's responsibility. So focus on yourself. And then on top of that, after you've taken care of you, then have the community mindset. So then, of course, share the space, share the spotlight, um, share the front row. So I always tell in my classes, let's change roles to make sure that everybody has a chance of being close to me and close to the mirror. And just being, a good team player, pretty much. That's what makes a good student towards their peers, in my opinion. And now, towards burlesque itself. First, curiosity. Um, a great student, a great burlesque student will be curious towards burlesque. So, thinking not only what burlesque can do for me or what I can get from this class, but also how can I give back? What can I do for burlesque? How can I make burlesque a better place for everybody? Plus, the curiosity towards history, respect for history is very important. genuine interest, like in all art forms or dance forms or styles. If you do ballet, there is the whole history of ballet, modern dance, a lot of history. Burlesque is not different. There is a lot of history behind burlesque. So, genuine interest will make you a better student. And of course, towards the teachers, punctuality, very important. Of course, life happens, but planning for arriving on time will make everybody's life smoother, especially because, again, it's dance. So you increase your chances of getting injured if you don't warm up. And we start the class by the warm up. So if you miss the warm up, you are at higher risk of injuries. So please don't do that. Try to be punctual for your burlesque classes. And one thing that I find very, very important for a student towards a teacher is to be open and authentic. Again, I'm dealing with adults here. So there is a few things that even if you don't yet, and burlesque kind of requires certain maturity, coming from people practicing burlesque, is if something doesn't feel right, deal with that with your teacher. I always keep my doors and my messages and WhatsApp and calls and everything open because it's very important, and that will come when I talk about teachers. It's my responsibility to keep things as I believe they should be. It's my vision as the teacher and the studio owner. But it's also a responsibility of my students to come and tell me because I'm also just human. So I cannot be everywhere all the time. Plus, a teacher or whoever the person responsible for class is at the moment, they don't know everything. So we rely on you as a student to come and talk to us. And I know that can be hard because when I see myself on the other role, in places where I am a participant or I am a student, be it in burlesque, be it in business, not all the time is super easy to come, especially when I have some feedback to share that is negative or not as positive as I would like. And for that, I have a simple rule: come from the best place you can. I find that this best place is a place of love. But honestly, come from the best place you can. There is a big difference between coming towards someone and being harshly critical and believing you own the truth and not listening to their side, or coming from a place of, I love what we do here, I love our community, and I want it to be improved. And that's why I'm sharing what I'm sharing. Also, kind of checking yourself out of things you don't want to do or don't feel like doing or don't sit right with you is also totally fine. And again, it's an environment full of adults who are part of this beautiful community that is very open and accepting. And if not, that's what we're trying to create here. So when a student doesn't want to do something, prefers to sit on the side, or doesn't want to do that, or this time and no, they're not feeling super well, they just want to see the class from the couch, all of those things are, of course, totally acceptable. So I'm counting on you as a teacher to come and tell me those things. And because I do not know everything about you or everything you're going through or how you're feeling all the time, I do my best to read you. But again, I'm just one person. And sometimes in class, maybe you have 30 students or something, right? So please focus on yourself, help yourself, be authentic, speak to your teacher. And towards performers, especially if you're a new student, you're new to burlesque, go to shows and go to every single show you can. And I mean all ranges. Go from the very small show in a tiny city somewhere near where you live to the biggest festival show at the theater or like huge theater, opera, whatever, depending on where you are. Maybe you have the chance, to have those big theaters that still host burlesque. So you can experience the whole range of what that is. Don't fully trust what you see in the mainstream media, and come to your teacher, because good teachers and good studios will be able to give you a good basis for that. What you see at the movie, Burlesque the movie, or what you see at Moulin Rouge, or all of those things are not necessarily everything that burlesque is, or maybe not even burlesque as we know it from inside the burlesque community. So trust your teachers. And I should write this here in my notes. So trust your teachers. That's also a good point. Right, so this is for students. By the way, if you have any questions about something, you can also type in the chat if you don't want to speak later. And then I'll always go back to the chat to see the questions. Also, if you have something to add, please, as a community, I know some of you have been burlesque also for quite a while. So please do share your experience. Now, point number two, what makes a good performer? And again, I'm not talking about the basics here, like, oh yeah, sending an invoice to the producer, arriving on time for your call, making sure you have space backstage for other performers. Like, those are given, right? I'm talking about being a good performer and contributing to the burlesque community. So, first, all of the things above. Everything I said about students applies to a performer as well. Mostly because many of us have been students as well, right? So you just didn't come as a performer, you probably started as a student as well. On top of that, I find that towards teachers, studios, and students, punctuality is very important. So if you are a performer who also teaches, make sure you are punctual. Make sure you prepare your lessons just like you would for any other job. If you were a teacher at a school, you would come to class with your class prepared. Expect I expect the same level of professionalism from a burlesque teacher when I come to a workshop or so on. Of course, one-to-ones are different because they are very personal. You have to learn what the student wants to see. But when you are teaching a specific skill workshop, make sure that your class is really well prepared so that the students can get most out of that. As we know, burlesque is not a cheap thing to be doing. So when someone decides to invest into your workshop, or investing to come and maybe see you, I also have a responsibility towards them to deliver the best workshop, performance, entertainment as possible, because that's also part of my job and I'm a professional, right? And then authenticity, and that one hits very close to home to me. That one was one of the lessons that took me a couple of years to learn. I have always been a teacher my whole life. I started as a math teacher. I used to teach, for some of you might know, there is a method called Kumon. It's a Japanese method. So that was my first job. I was around 16 or something. Then after that, my next job was as an English teacher. And I was an English teacher for a very long time, I think 12, 15 years maybe. And then, of course, I came to burlesque, and then I started teaching when I bought the studio. And many skills are transferable, right? Like teaching is teaching, whether you are teaching mindset or dance or a language. There is still a lot of listening, is still a lot of paying attention to what others are doing, timing for correction and so on. And by the way, I'm starting to teach a teacher's training. I'm working right now with a trial group, and it will be eventually available for everybody. And I talk about all of those things, correction and so on, preparing for classes. And the one thing that as soon as I came to burlesque really hit me hard as a teacher is I am a big introvert. And I'm not super bubbly. My personality is not this kind. And almost every performer, I hire a lot of performers to teach in my studios when they are in town. They have this huge, bubbly, amazing personality, which I don't. And it made me doubt myself quite a bit. I always thought, for the longest time, I thought, well, maybe I can never be a really good teacher because I just don't have the personality for it. And I don't want to fake it. I can't. Even if I try, it's not who I am. And then, of course, I kept teaching. I'm teaching to this day. I then learned to kind of be more authentic. And it's okay, whoever you are, as far as you hang on to your strengths. And again, it's the diversity thing, right? It's so easy for us to look outside and search for that and offer a space for that to happen. And sometimes not do that internally. So for a long time, I was super happy, and I still am, like, to see the diversity, but I wouldn't allow myself to be part of the diversity by not being bubbly, by just relying on my strengths as an introvert, as someone who doesn't speak so loud or doesn't scream or all of those things. I saw those as weaknesses, not as just, it's different and it's the way I do it and there is nothing wrong with it. So recently, I would say close to a year ago, I learned that. I cannot tell you what it was. What I can tell you is that keep going because you're going to have those insights in your life. If you are here, if you're listening to this and that speaks to you, do listen to that. You don't need a specific, the same way you don't need a specific body type or ability or be able to do whatever to do burlesque. You don't need to have a specific type of personality to teach burlesque or to perform burlesque for that matter. And then once you realize that, you have space to rely on your strengths. So I know that with my introversion, I'm very good at watching people. So I'm very good with my feedbacks. I know that I'm very good at reading the room. I'm very good at talking to people one to one. So actually, there is a lot of good things that come with my personality, and those are the things I push forward today. So when I say that, one thing that makes a good performer who also teaches, and that goes also for just teachers in general of burlesque, even if you don't perform, is be true to yourself and make that your strength. And that will also attract the people that want to hear that from you. And the same way that I go to different mentors and different teachers because they have different things to offer, that's the beauty of it, right? When I need someone to help me with dance skills, I will go to someone I know who can offer me those dance skills. When I need someone to help me go over a block I have in my head, I will go to someone I know that helps me with my mindset. And the same way that will make you unique to share the gifts that you need to share with the world. So remember that authenticity is important as a performer towards teachers, studios, and students. I will give you a second point to that. My second point to that is, and I'll go to your question in a second, is make sure, and that can take a while, and that's okay, you learn who you are and who you like to teach as well. That's another thing. Many burlesque classes are about the entertainment, right? And there is nothing wrong with that. No, after all, burlesque is so much fun. Hello. But that's something I don't particularly enjoy doing. I like talking about what I'm talking to you today. I like going deep. I'm a big geek, so I like to geek out about burlesque. And someone who is coming to a first class and just wants to learn quick routine, just to have a little fun and start dipping their toes, onto like what burlesque is, might not be interested in that. And the more that I feel like I align with what I want to teach, the same goes for performers on stage. The more I align with the type of performer I want to be and the performance I want to deliver, the better I get at those things. When I stop trying to be something else and I allow myself to be myself and hang on my strengths. So, yes, and before I go to the next point, there is a question.
Yes. What advice would you give, like, for a person to find their, let's say, authentic perform? Because, like, would you try different styles or experiment a bit? Like, for example, when it comes to different performer, like styles, basically, like, go like try a bit of everything until you find what calls you, or like go straight more to what your interests are. Like, for example, I don't know if you want to do something a bit more classical or something a bit more funny, or like what is your advice in this case until you find something that really the, let's say, authentic performer in you comes out?
Thank you. Yes. I would say it's a bit of everything. So for me, watching shows already helped me find, okay, I like this kind of show better than this kind of show. So that gave me a little direction. Then on top of that, I did push myself to do a bit of everything. Because there were things that I enjoyed seeing, but I not necessarily like doing, but I had to try. So I did once like a horror inspired act, which at the end of the day is not really my thing. I've done some comedy, a little comedy, something, but not totally comedy. But yeah, so let's say if I pinpoint things would be watch. So then you already know more or less which direction. Second, try, because it's your playground. So you're allowed to do everything. If there is one thing like this is so out of my comfort zone, but yeah, maybe I should try. Just do it. Like there is really no consequences to that. So try everything. And what will happen? Because also this is very generic, right? So when I say, oh yeah, of course, I'm attracted to classic, therefore I'll do a classic act. And I always talk to people, okay, but what makes you different, right? Because that's the one thing we all want to find, in burlesque, especially when people are going for gigs, they want to get booked. You want to know, okay, what makes me unique that will make someone book me? That comes later in the game because then you're going to match passion. Little by little, you'll feel more comfortable being authentic, and you might find out that in your authenticity, in discovering the things that make you you and feeling comfortable in those things, stuff that doesn't belong to anyone else because they're unique to you come out. And I'll give you an example so it's more clear. Still in the same area. So I'm a big introvert, and I remember watching back my acts and being unhappy sometimes about some things and having a mentor tell me, like, oh, yeah, because you're so uptight. Sometimes you go really out there and then you're back. And when you are back, you are performing or you are thinking too much or overthinking during your performance. That's why it doesn't look the way you want. And at first, again, the same way as teaching, I was like, I cannot do that because hello, I am uptight. Like, maybe I was not made for burlesque. Maybe I should just quit, like I don't have the bubbly personality. I'm uptight. I'm introverted, like all of those things. Recently, I was like, you know what? It's just a quality, it's just one part of me. And who decides whether this is good or bad? It's me. And then that brought me to the whole heritage thing. So, for the people who are not following right now, I'm working a lot because I'm half Japanese. So, I'm working a lot on bringing some of my heritage with me to the stage and everything. And when we think of Asia and Japan, it is a culture that really wants restraint. There is so much power in restraint. So it made me totally turn that around and think, wait a minute, actually being uptight or having restraint can actually be a strength. So I started working on my acts now, and even the old acts that I have. So whenever I revisit them, because they're always evolving with you, I was like, wait, so now I have this moment that I'm actually out there and I do have my restrained moments. And that's okay. And that's very interesting because it makes also it very special. So at the same time, it was a weakness before when I was resisting and not accepting it. It's slowly, as I work inside myself and I work with all of those things, becoming a strength because I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, actually, this is what I do. I am a master in being out there and suddenly have full restraint. It's like, okay, now it's a superpower. And then slowly, those things start to define you as an artist better and make you more unique as an artist. So trust the process as well.
Yeah,
Keep doing.
the example I have, like for example, our showgirl choreo at the moment, it's yeah, I can do the most, but it's a bit out of my comfort zone because I feel like very happy and girly, and that's just not who I am. But yeah, it's a bit. I don't know when we get to the point where we have to perform. Also, how am I going to implement a bit of my personality in there as well? Because currently, for me, like I said, some moments is a bit out of my comfort zone still.
So that's probably exactly the thing you should be doing. So good job. And definitely take that as a challenge. So, how you can put yourself into that. And that's a very interesting topic, by the way, how to have your own personality in a group context. Maybe we can talk about it eventually in one of the classes. And then on top of that, also it's going to bring you something to your own solo career. So all of the techniques and all of the things you're learning there, I hope you can apply eventually also to your solo career. So it's a two-way thing. You're giving yourself to something that is uncomfortable, and that thing gives you something back for sure. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. That was a great question. And just before I go to teacher, still, what makes a good performer? Last point I have is empathy. And that's towards everybody, towards other students, towards teachers, towards your peers, towards studios and everything. So it's kind of that, even though, again, burlesque is for everybody, it is a very feminist and feminine art form. And that's where everybody can actually express a lot of their femininity, regardless of the gender they identify with. And one of the things is bringing whatever it is that the feminine side brings to the game and making the most and the best out of it. And empathy is one of them, right? So empathy is kind of when we think of yin yang, it's a very yin characteristic, right? Yin is the feminine. So as a performer, as a teacher, not only will we be able to perform better because you have that feeling, for the air, you can just read the room. You just have this kind of gut or intuition, like this beautiful force inside of you that you can use. But also in class, that's very useful towards the studio because it can tell you from your gut what you think needs to be said and needs to be done. And that's actually one of the things that I use the most. So I come to these classes or even my theory classes that I teach weekly at my studio. I come with pinpoints, like bullet points of what I want to talk about. But I know and I trust that whatever has to be said at that moment will come out of me, and people around me will interact, and everything what needs most to be said at that moment will be said at that moment. So that's a great thing for performers to have. Then next point is what makes a good teacher. And again, as always, on top of everything that I already said for students and for performers, there is the technical part. So knowledge and interest. Um, of course, you have to know things. And on top of knowing them, you need to have interest to keep learning them even more. Um, and one thing I can tell you after now that that's going to be my 5th year teaching regularly. So yeah, I don't count how many hours, but really, I've been teaching now for a very long time and very many hours. One of the things that for sure is important to know is try and geek out so much over the things you're teaching that you will start to make connections and see patterns that do not necessarily come to either people who are starting or even other people, because that's another thing. Maybe I could call this class Find Your Uniqueness, because that's also something that will make you very unique. So recently, I've been working a lot with props. And just by working with props, it became very clear to me how they are so connected and relatable to the elements. How a feather fan is so much in the air, and how your high heels are so much about being grounded and floor work as well, and how a boa is so much about like sensuality and etc. And all of those things uh, are is something that's just coming to me right now. And the more and the longer and the more interest you have, and the more you learn and the more you teach, the more those insights will come to you, so you can pass on to the next generation. So knowledge and interest. Next is structure and preparation. And again, it becomes easier with time. And that's kind of mostly on the obvious side, but uh, I find a minimum you should know what choreography you were teaching. Because I've been to classes where the teacher is coming up with the choreography as we go, and that doesn't work well for a group. You should know the choreography you're going to teach before. Ideally, you want to have a portfolio, right? You want to have the choreographies that you teach for workshops or for classes. Authenticity, I already spoke about. And then on top of that, passion for sharing and passion for learning. That's very important. So you want to learn more and share that with your students and the next generations. Um, Empathy and ability to listen with intention and attention. So listen beyond what is being said is also important to notice. And one thing, and then if there was only one bullet point here, this would be the one, is responsibility. I think even more than the studio itself, I say that for myself because I have the studio and I'm the only regular teacher there. So I can definitely merge both things. However, if I were to have other teachers, I think I would put this as first the teacher and then the studio's responsibility, which is responsibility. And what I mean by that is not everything is your fault, but everything is your responsibility. So even if you don't do anything wrong and something happens, it is your responsibility. If something is off and you don't talk about it, even if you didn't start with that, because probably you didn't, doesn't matter. It's your responsibility. If two students are not getting along, again, they are, as I said before, they're adults. So you kind of expect, okay, they're gonna figure that out. If it gets to your ears, it's your responsibility. Period. You cannot turn your back to anything. Very important. That would be my point number one if you want to be a very good burlesque teacher, especially in burlesque. Once you have, once you decide to be a teacher in burlesque, you are holding a very special, sacred space for other people. Burlesque is not just another dance style. It's a place many people come to heal, many people come to express, many people who maybe have never had a safe space in their lives. They come to burlesque. And you, as the person offering this space, are responsible for keeping it this way. Right. So, top, number one. And last but not least, what makes a good studio? And again, everything above. Plus, on top of that, you need to have very clear communication. And I'm a little guilty of that sometimes. I sometimes get tired of repeating myself, but trust me, it is part of your job. It's going to be part of my job forever. Little by little, I'm coming to terms with that. So I was like, okay, my 50% of my job is repeating myself, and that's fine. Um, Communicating again and again and again and again and again. So that's very important. Of course, there is over communication, which is a very difficult balance to find, but do your best. Like, do your best. And more is usually better. The line I draw as a studio owner is what people do not need to know because it's just in the an imaginary situation. So when I'm working on something that might or might not happen, that's not a communication matter. I don't have to tell people everything I'm thinking about. Once something is set, then it's my job to communicate it well, 100 times if needed, in person, in a chat, per email, and etc., etc., etc. Yeah. So it's very important for studio owners to have these two different spaces in your head. The space where ideas and stuff, you're a little visionary, right? So all of this is here beautifully, like bubbling and coming, you're going to birth something. I like to use this analogy. And you have the concrete things, right? The concrete needs to be communicated like crazy. The imaginary things, not necessarily. So that's number one. Number two, you need to have a vision and a mission. As I mentioned before, a vision is, I like to think like, who is my client? So, for example, and that's totally up to you. You can have a studio focused on whatever you want. My studio focus is to give every single person who wants the spotlight. That's my vision. And it's also important for me to have a lot of more love, less ego in general. So I don't look for having the perfect group, the perfect dancers, the perfect performers, any of that. That doesn't really interest me. My vision for my studio is having the spotlight for every single human being who wants the spotlight. That's it. When you open a studio or you take one or whatever, you can have any vision you want. You can do, okay, the vision for my studio is to have the I don't know, the best dancers in the industry. So it's a very professional focused studio. Maybe you have even auditions for people to get into your studio. That's totally fine too. But you gotta have a vision, because that is what will create the vibe and the community that you are creating. And that's very important, because if you're not very clear about your vision, anybody can get in, and then not everybody has the same ideas or wants the same things. So it's best to have a clear vision. And the mission, which is, what are you here to do? So my vision is empower every single human being. My mission is for what? For the stage. So that they want the spotlight, they get it. Um, then clear rules that need to be repeated and reinforced. So again, if it was one word that I had here, would be repetition, 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 repetition. And it's very important that people know your rules. And it's very difficult in the beginning. Yeah, that's one of the things not only I have done. When I had my very first big problem with rules, I spoke to every single person I know in the industry. They have all been through the same thing. Well, there was one exception, but that's a different case. You need to have rules. And if you don't know your rules yet, invent some. And then maybe you can change them later or something. Make sure you have some rules from the get-go. That's very important. And of course, if nobody knows about them, they don't exist. So you gotta be repeating them. So if you decide that, okay, if someone is, I don't know, late for class and miss the warm up, they cannot do the class to avoid injury. Make sure you reinforce that. It hurts, I know. You don't want to tell someone who made, like maybe it was a traffic jam or whatever, it's not their fault. They are late for class. Maybe you can have a rule that they have to warm up for 10 minutes before joining, something like that. But make sure that you don't break your own rules all the time. Okay. Very important for a studio. And last but not least, but that goes without saying, organization. And that is a big one, because I've seen a lot of very disorganized teachers or performers or studios. And for me, that's a big pet peeve. Like, if you, a burlesque studio is a business after all. So you gotta make sure you are organized and you know what's happening and you have a schedule and you have a booking system and, like, you have things very structured and clear in place so people know what to do, what to expect, and so on. So, having said that, those are my points. And then I want to first open for questions. Anyone has any questions? Let me see if someone wrote here. No, nothing on the notes. Okay. Everybody's quiet. Okay. Anyone has any comments? Anything you would like to add? Or something with your own experience? Also, if you're watching this recorded, you can write in the comments and so on. Okay, I think we're good. So that was it for today. As I mentioned, I will post that everywhere if you want to watch the recording later. I will also send per email the link, so you're definitely going to have access to it. And if you have any other questions, my inbox is always open as well. If you want to say something privately, that's also totally fine. I'm always here. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're watching the recording, thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful end of the day and see you all somewhere, sometime. Bye.